All right, hello, hello, the moment we've all been waiting for. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ellen Riado. I am the Executive Director of the South Park Business Improvement District. Welcome to South Park, if this is the first time that you've been here. I have to say, this is my first in-person work event. Although this doesn't feel like work, it feels like a lot of fun. It's so good to see everybody and give people hugs and look at people's real life faces. So I hope that this is as exciting for you all as it is for me. We are so proud to have been able to work with Carmen and Now Art over the years on a number of different public art projects, but I have to say the Luminex event was incredible. How many people, yeah, please, round of applause for Carmen, and it won't be the last one. Feedback, sorry. I had been a part of that event since the inception. Carmen came and said, hey, I've got this idea, which is the best way for Carmen to start a pitch. I've got this idea, what do you think if we did this? I was like, yeah, I mean, that sounds great. If we could pull that off, sure. And of course, you give that to Carmen and she runs with it and makes it a 16,000 person event in 3 months. It was unbelievable. It blew my expectations away, and I can't wait to do it again. And it has started a ton of conversations in my industry, across sectors, about what the future of public art really looks like, right? We know what murals are. We know what sculptures are, and they're wonderful, and they have their place, but the future of public art is something that we got a taste of at Luminex, and I'm so excited to see what comes next. So I want to say thank you again to Carmen and Now Art for pulling off my absolute favorite public event that I've ever been a part of. I want to thank High Def for donating this space. High Def opened in the middle of the pandemic, and it was like blood, sweat, and tears, and here they are, and we're so proud to have them in the district. This is another plug for High Def. Please drink a lot, but be safe, and eat a lot, but stay healthy. And yeah, I think those are all the things that I had to say. Thank you so much for being here. It's so, so nice to see everybody. I'm going to turn it over to Carmen. Thank you all.
So here we are. I'm really excited to co-host this event and have everybody here. This is really meant to be casual, collaborative. There's a lot of people from many different industries that, I'm interested to hear your voices as well about the future of art, not just public art, but art in general. So I wanted to do a little introduction of the panelists that we have and the moderator. So I'm going to start with Paul. Paul. So this is Paul Chavez from Arup Industries.
Hi, nice to meet you all. Yeah, I'm with Arup. Arup is a building engineering firm that does everything from structural engineering to user experience design, and that's where I fit into the mix. I have an audiovisual design background, a music background, and Carmen and I have known each other for a little while, and I followed her on her epic quest to do the Luminex project and helped design some of the video installations for that.
And then Brian Duffy from Panasonic.
Hey guys, I'm Brian Duffy. I work for Panasonic. You guys might know us if you had a Walkman back in the 90s. But now I concentrate on audio visual and the experiences that we can create with some of this technology that we manufacture and develop.
And live experiences. And then Joseph Conover.
Hello everybody, Joseph Conover. I'm also with Panasonic on the themed entertainment solutions side. So we build cool theme parks and immersive experiences. My role is I kind of pair technology to artists and try to create a way to accomplish their dreams.
And Greg Carter from MarkersPlace, which is a premier NFT platform for artists.
Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Yeah, like Carmen said, my name is Greg. I'm the Artist Success and Digital Growth Manager for MarkersPlace. We're a premier marketplace for digital artists all around the world, and we empower them to monetize their creativity for the first time, basically almost ever in this fashion with the blockchain, and just excited to be here. I'm super local, so if anyone has any local connections or anything that you need help with, just let me know.
And Refik Anadol, artist.
Hello everyone, I'm Refik, great to be here, great to be a part of this event. Thanks to everyone that we made something exciting for Los Angeles. Living new home for 9 years, teaching at UCLA, last 7 years, got my degree in kind of art and technology actually. Practicing as a studio here in Los Angeles for 7 years. We are 14 people, can speak 14 languages and represent 10 countries in a physical one studio. And thanks to this beautiful diversity and opportunities, trying to make art for anyone, any age and any background. Great to be here tonight with you all.
And then we have our moderator, the LA Weekly, our critic, Shana Dambrot. I'm not going to spill it.
I'm watching, I can't help it. Yeah. Hi everybody, it's Chu. My name is Shana Dambrot, and I am an art critic, and I'm the arts editor at the LA Weekly, and also, not for nothing, a resident of downtown LA. And so Luminex kind of happened in my neighborhood, and it was as incredible as you've heard. If you were there, you know. If you weren't there, make sure you don't miss the next iteration. It was really magical. So I'm really, really thrilled to be here, and I was so happy to hear from you, Carmen, to have this important conversation. Hello. Some people are better at tech than others. Not one of them. No, but you know, honestly, here's the thing. In sort of formulating the structure of this conversation, we had so many ideas, and every idea led to another inspiration and another idea and another. And honestly, what we're going to try to touch on in 40 minutes could be a 4-day symposium, right? We go from everything from how artists work with the technology, how the artists are inspired by the technology, how the artists make demands on the technology that the companies meet and in turn are inspired by, how all of that communication goes in between mediums and physical sites and the metaverse, and how all of that builds community, and how all of that gets paid for, and how all of that creates public destinations, both in the real architectural world and in the cloud of your device of anywhere, and how it's all fits together, and how NFTs grew out of a curiosity with the blockchain technology, and now they're becoming a funding source. And I mean, see what I mean? 40 minutes, right? Good luck to everyone. But we're gonna dive in, and we're gonna try to at least pull at some of those threads. And I'm so excited to meet everyone and to hear how all of what each of you does feeds into that kind of overlap. And so we're going to kind of go down the line to start with, and then I'm sure it'll just get chaotic soon. Right? I think the first thing that I wanted to say, and this is going to turn into a question for you, Refik, is, you know, we say sometimes art and technology, quite exactly as though they are not often and increasingly the exact same thing. And it reminded me, as someone who writes about art and studied art history, of how we used to say art and photography, like those were different things. And for many of the same reasons, because photography, it was felt, was a machine, and therefore it was different from art. And people had that argument for 100 years. And it kind of like just got settled recently, right? And so I feel like I recognize this place that we're at as we start to talk about the creative design and art and experiential applications for the new technology. We're right there. And where this group lands is in that sort of Venn diagram of overlap where they're the same. which I find really exciting. So that's kind of how I'm going to want to talk to each of you. And so we're going to start with you because obviously everyone here is a fan of your work. You're one of the more high-profile practitioners globally. I think I read in my inbox today you have a show opening in New York tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so never. In other words, you couldn't be more busy or more occupied. So there's a lot of demand, a huge audience, and a lot to be explored. So if you wouldn't mind, please, kicking things off just by explaining a little bit about how the kind of creativity comes into contact with the limits and possibilities of the code, the technology itself, and to your mind, how those things work together.
Okay, so really super excited in the physical world. First of all, without masks, I'm just much excited than before. So really, it's something I'm getting used to. But I think one of the reasons, so as a media artist, I've been practicing now 10 years. But I think, first of all, maybe very cliche, but I was 8 years old when I watched the movie Blade Runner right here downtown Los Angeles. So very meta day, but I'm really, really inspired since my childhood to really travel to see this wonderful world of Ridley Scott, but also, I mean, realistically, is it like, can we go there? So I think art for me, humanity's capacity of imagination. I think any artist most likely push their imagination. And I think eventually anyone in the world can push the imagination, can easily find technology at the edge of that imagination. I think it's a natural finding. And I think anyone, especially inspired by science fiction or near future, remembering the future context, I know that anyone will touch the idea of being more smart, maybe more careful, more emotional, more empathic, more sympathetic. Like I think everything somehow is just technology in the core of it, right? But if we try to embed media arts into architecture, which I think public art is one of the most fantastic way of embedding arts into architecture, arts into urban space and so on, it's just a natural finding. But when we bring the data and the light as a material, which I think why the event was so exciting, especially during pandemic while we were away from many things, I think it's just a beautiful and honest reaction of humans, machines and environments are coming together in a natural form. And I think that's why, one of the reasons I think the event was so exciting, but also the collaboration between many partners. Like, when light becomes a material for an artist, by the way, let's also remember the heroes like James Turrell, Dan Flavin, Robert Irwin, all these people, heroes who just started this medium, right, back in 70s and just here in Los Angeles. I think the circle is very naturally closing itself, I think. So that's how I feel to this first. And thanks to technology that allow us to like also project that idea and also distribute in other spaces and make it happen by logically, not only just dream, but make it real. So I think it's all naturally connected by the curating as well.
Beautiful, thank you. That's perfect. And it kind of flows into one of my first questions for Greg, next to you. So far, so good with the plan. Because that was another situation. That was a situation where, the resin, the outer space stuff, that was not made for artists, right? That was made so that we could send someone to the moon. But then artists took a look at resin and polyurethane and space travel and all of the technology and went, hey, do you think I could make art out of that? What would that be like? And we got Light and Space that helped define the century in California and global art history. And to my mind, Greg, when I look at the situation with NFTs, that's one of the things I think of. The blockchain was not built for artists. It was built. And then artists went, oh man, what would it be like if I made art out of that? And then the things that came along with that, the selling, the authentication, and the accessibility, which allowed, for example, the works in Luminex to be released on your platform, which helped fund the public experience itself. So if you could maybe speak from your perspective from inside NFT Magic Land, kind of, how that plays out at MarkersPlace for you.
Yeah, sure.
And I know you're an artist as well.
Yes, yeah, so. On the side.
On the side.
Mostly focus on my full-time job.
Yes.
For if my boss is watching.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, I think to your point, it's really both. Like what leads what. Like I think you said earlier, chicken or the egg. Like, is the art leading the technology, or is the technology leading the art? And I think Refik, your work is one of the best blinders of that. I think it's very ambiguous, which I love. And it's amazing to see from the platform's perspective, both of those play out like every single day. We have artists who come onto the platform who do a certain type of work because of NFT as a technology, because of blockchain enabling them for the first time in their life to monetize their work and to present it in a certain way. But then we also have artists where the art itself is driving their creativity, and it's just mind-blowing to see some of these artists from all around the world converging into the same transition of an entire industry. Like, for the first time in our lives, we're seeing a technology like this and art converge on the same exact moment. So for us as a platform to be able to work with organizations like Now Art and bring that even more full circle, taking the art, the technology, and then the in-person experience to be able to add just like a colorful element to everything has been extremely special from our point of view.
Oh, fantastic, thank you. And I love to, and as we go on, you guys heard me talk about this a little bit before, I love, my favorite is that sort of mixed reality category, right? Like AR, VR, IRL, that's all, everything has its charms. But to my mind, when I'm not forced to choose and I can have aspects of that experience all at the same moment, like many moments that happened at Luminex, that to me is really lights a fire. It's really explosive. And so I agree with you, like the ways that all these things are speaking to one another, I think is one of the most exciting parts. It's like the merits of the technology and what's possible are exciting, but the ripple effect throughout the culture of interdisciplinary collaboration and access, I think, is maybe even more exciting still. So I thank you. That makes a lot of sense to me. And I see Joe, who's next anyway, nodding, which is really nice. But I definitely, the three of you now, you guys, you do similar interrelated things as each other, but not exactly the same. And I want to make sure that you guys are able to explain exactly your sort of piece of this puzzle, because I know there's a lot of direct communication with creative people when it's time to create an actual event, but there's also the sort of science lab part where the code is being written and the products are being designed. There's the outreach part where you're trying to get in front of stakeholders and convince them that this is the most awesome way to go. Then it's like, there's the part where you figure out how far away from a building a projector has to be to look perfect museum quality, to look right, to sound right. Projection mapping is no joke. This one did it to Disney Hall. That still gives me nightmares just thinking about. So, if in any order, because I know you guys kind of know each other a little bit, if you guys could just explain like how all of these beautiful ideas actually end up in a physical place and time, such as we were able to experience with Luminex.
So I'll start with that, and thank you very much. But essentially, from my perspective, being a fan of art, being a creative myself, I like to build things. When I came to Panasonic, they really screwed up and they kind of gave me the keys to the kingdom. And my first couple visits, you're able to see this large corporation that makes some really great technology and great things. Doesn't always necessarily know how to apply them, but we love to go into that and see how we can utilize technology to accomplish that goal.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you. And I'm, not for nothing, but like kudos to Panasonic for having, that kind of consciousness front and center in the technology and to make it accessible. I mean, I see the benefit for you as well, because I look at that and I go, oh my God, that's the most miraculous thing I've ever seen. And y'all can be like, Panasonic did it. And I mean, not for nothing, but it's more than just underwriting an exhibition, right? Corporate philanthropy is brilliant. They donate money to exhibitions. Goya by Goya, that was a funny one in New York a few years ago. And they pay for things. And thank you. But to hear that it's more integrated, even to the point where it might reach designers and biz dev people to have it in front of mind, I find very exciting. So,
and to that point, if I may add, it's that conversation to me. I never want to see the technology. right? So I want to see the art as vision. So you talked about our engineers and projection mapping, and that is a science, right? So we have a lot of color scientists, we have a lot of smart people in our company to accomplish those goals. It's not just throwing a projector up and hitting a wall in a classroom, right? This is pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But we're able to do that, and if we do it correctly, you'll never see the technology. I don't want to be the focus on the technology, right? I want to be the focus on the art, and that's another level of success there that we try to strive for.
Because the technology, when it's working really effectively, it's enhancing the art. It's not necessarily intrinsically connected as the driver for the art experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm that guy that tries to seek it out. So going through Harry Potter or something when my lovely wife is enjoying it and seeing all these wonderful things, I'm the guy looking underneath like, what the hell is moving me around this place? What is this technology? So to hide that, the better. Obviously the Disneys and people like them do it very well. And when you do that well, you really, all you're focused on is the narrative, the art, and you're walking away with something personal on that. And that I really much look forward to.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Brian, please continue.
Yeah, so just to add to that a little bit, I think we're at a really interesting, pivotal point in art and technology, and the fact that both are merging together. And Refik's artwork is such a great example of that, to be able to visualize what's happening inside the mind of a computer and artificial intelligence. And Greg mentioned before, well, what came first, the chicken or the egg? But I think the important thing to know now where we're at is that we're relying on each other. So Panasonic is a company that's been around for over 100 years, and its lifeblood is innovation. And we're at a point now where we need the creative artists to help us and to push us to innovate further. And then that technology can be incorporated in their work. And you need to be a little bit crazy to be a dreamer, right? And it helps push that technology forward, and that technology then becomes a crucial, pivotal point in the artwork itself. So it's really this synonymous type of relationship where the two are constantly pushing the status quo, and then we find ourselves in this period of hypergrowth, which is amazing because what's coming of this is experiences that has never really been seen before, one-of-a-kind type of installations and pop-up experiences and exhibitions, a lot like Luminance, right? To be able to bring this technology in for one night, transform a landscape into something digital and one-of-a-kind, is something that we may have not been able to just easily have done 5 years ago. So the technology and the artwork pushing each other, I think, is the key here to growth.
I love that. Thank you. And I mean, I'm curious, and we can even come back to it after while I have you real quick. I'm just curious, and maybe some people are too, like in the course of your day, right? Like at the office, do you hear from artists regularly? Are you in kind of like direct contact with the people, with the end users, or like how do the artists and the tech designers, mad scientists communicate with each other? Like, is that pretty direct, or?
Yeah, so I mean, my office these days looks more like a living room, because it is.
Oh, there's that.
Now I guess the world's coming back, right? So, but yes, Panasonic, we have a very broad base of customers. And like Joe, I feel like I'm Joe's mini-me, right? Our passions are in the arts. And that's what keeps me, passionate about my job. And yes, we cover customers across the board, but I do see the importance in having a direct relationship with someone like Refik that is pushing the status quo, because that helps us innovate.
Beautiful. And yeah.
If I may just add to that, you ask who we talk to, and a lot of times we do talk to the artists or talk to the creatives who are trying to build a space. And they come to us first because they're thinking technology, and it's not beyond me to have that conversation. And they're like, we need a bunch of these things. And I'm like, well, what's the story? Like, what are you trying to accomplish here? And if you don't have that, it's technology for technology's sake. And I would rather not support that until they come back with that story. So we tend to have that conversation, and that's where people like Arup really come into play. Is you need that person to help you tell your vision onto paper, into design, into a theory, and see if it's feasible. And then technology comes in last, and I'll make that work. Right? We'll always make that work and make that goal accomplished. But it really starts with the artist's vision, and then a company like Arup that come in and say, well, here's how you can accomplish that vision, and let's go to a Panasonic who probably has everything you need. If they don't, they can probably make it for you, right? So that's kind of, but a lot of people come without that, and that's why having this network of people is, you really start here, and then we're happy to help make those referrals and come back, and they'll always come back, right?
Yeah. So Paul, maybe speak a little bit to that, like, you get a call from Refik, and he's like, okay, so I took the entire archive of the Museum of the City of New York and I fed it into a program that I wrote, and now I want to make a building out of it. Can you help me?
So true. It's not far-fetched in any way. In fact, Refik and I met first because of the work that he was doing with 3D printing and taking this data that he works with and creating a building basically. And the reason why Arup was involved was because structurally we need some help to figure out if this thing will stand and will stay standing. So Arup is the reason I'm with Arup is because Arup is known and really plays out taking big challenges and really savoring the creative solution, which is an engineering solution. And I think that probably unites us all in that whatever medium we're working on, whether it's creating projectors or distributing art and selling art or making art or creating experiences, we're all using our medium, whatever we have. For me, I also, I get to liaison between the products and the artists, and I do get, I'm working. There's artists in the audience that I'm working with right now as well, where we're trying to figure out like which technology to use and what is your story that you're trying to tell, because that's exactly the thing that I'm looking for, is that match and how to apply the beautiful technology and make it a beautiful experience with the beautiful work that gets thought in the brain of an artist like that.
Yeah, and the brain of a computer too, right? I mean, and that's the whole thing, right? And this is why it's so. What you and also what's going on, in the NFT world. It exists at such an exciting nexus between all the ideas that everyone's talking about, where it's partly growing out of the tech is leveraged for the idea, you're learning from each other. It's sort of like, it's not the Wild West, but it's definitely, a place of experimentation is the point almost still that we're at, right? And so I guess, and then I kind of know I have a bad sense of time, but we're gonna have some time for questions at the end too. But I'm really curious how, I guess you could kind of, collaborating with a machine is such an interesting idea. And I love you for saying Blade Runner, because I happen to live in a building where they shot the final scene with that whole, I've seen things, your mortal is going to. And I walk by the Bradbury building, and I think about this all the time. And stuff comes up in our world, and everybody goes, oh, that's so Blade Runner. Well, what do you know? Be careful what you wish for, kind of. And I feel like, people talk about how science fiction, some of the greatest actual technology that we live with every day, was something that was a detail in a science fiction novel in the 40s or 50s. Like, this is something that happens in our culture. And I guess I'm super curious about what it's like to experience the technology and the machinery as a kind of collaborator in that way. Like, it has its own logic and its own needs and its own abilities. So it's not just the same as a paintbrush. We talk about it creatively, like pixels instead of paint, but actually the doing of it is kind of like another perspective on things. And I'm wondering if the two of you could just talk a little bit about it from an artist point of view, and then we'll see how we're doing. Maybe question.
So I think this is one of the reason, like, as we all discussing. First of all, maybe the beauty of art and technology means a little bit going beyond the conventional mediums of like things which respectfully and deeply appreciating beautiful different narratives. But I think when art goes public, when art goes outside the studios or museums or galleries, let's call it like that, then the whole thing becomes a collaborative imagination. And I think what is really inspiring is, so it was almost 9 years ago when I rent my car, the first thing LAX landing, I put my luggage in the UCLA housing and I rent a car and come downtown LA to see Disney Hall. Because I knew that in the movie, yes, like the buildings were communicating with us by using light as a material, and there was some kind of imaginative like holography on the buildings, right? That was the 2049. But I think what was really, for me, inspiring is now artists can use a thinking brush, and this brush can represent mission consciousness. And I think if you think about technology in life, sometimes we hear a lot of ramifications, more dystopian narratives, but I think if we take the public art as a more optimist, more hopeful, and more recovering from the things that may go wrong in life, and if the public art becomes a kind of representative experience in life by technology, and if it touches someone's heart and soul and mind at the same time, and I think that was the feeling that we are discussing, that magic happens in these statements. I think that's one of the reasons public art and using AI or complex technologies or distribution models to create more access or curation of diversity, and when they all come together, I guess, that unlocks the future of imagination and experience in life. So I think it's just so valuable of things all together survives, and the value is just, and the future is there. It's very hopeful, it's very optimistic, I think.
Yeah, it is.
What we hopefully all imagining together.
Well, I think we are, and I mean, you know, now art is nothing if not optimist, right? I mean, that's the whole idea, is like creating these shared community environments. You know, we talk about sort of revitalization, you know, that's not only architectural and physical, it's also like people based.
Yes.
Right? And so you turned, was the pandemic, and you turned a dozen empty parking lots into like overflowing, beautiful, you know, dynamic, lovely, joyful communities, town squares. That is the utopian version of Blade Runner.
And absolutely, like how many
Right.
thousand people together coming and watching some experience, but while enjoying the life again. I think that's not just, by the way, LA is the home of cinema, right? It's predictably, I mean, we should invent things, right, much quicker than many people experience in the DNA. So, I don't know, it's just naturally perfect, fitting the...
No, I think so. And I think, you know, again, just, you know, to tie it into like the NFT thing, one of the sort of questions of tonight was, you know, that we, you know, was it time, is it past time to even be thinking about what we mean when we say digital art? And I think the answer is yes, and the answer you just gave, and the answer that I feel might be coming from Greg, is like, yeah, digital art isn't just about the stuff you happen to be using to make it with, you know, pixel instead of a paintbrush. It has a whole universe of energy unto itself in the way that it exists in society as a kind of shared experience. And I think that's some of what the empowerment of the NFT space has been about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so special to be able to work with artists like Refik, and just it's like kind of mind-blowing every day to experience people who have been doing this either on their own or always for a client, or just are kind of fed up with the track that their journey has taken them, and now are just like everything is in their hands. It's like such a revitalization for so many people. Just speaking to the technology, but also the community. I mean, I didn't think I would ever be like enjoying walking around as an avatar in a metaverse. I didn't know what that meant. Let alone where to find one. But yeah, it's been incredible, and it impacts so many people around the world in terms of their ability to express themselves and create a path for themselves, both financially and emotionally. I mean, a lot of times these digital artists are doing their work alone, and I think events in the digital landscape, the metaverse, or in person, like this wall right here a couple of months ago, it just brings things like completely full circle, and it was a monumental shift that I think will be one of the biggest for the art world ever.
Yeah,
I wanna
amen.
pipe in
Amen.
here
I
for-
totally agree. That's such a beautiful place to kind of wrap and start to let the audience have questions. What's an NFT is not an allowed question. FYI.
So I just want to be
Save
able
it for
to,
Clubhouse.
open up the floor and, give everybody a chance to be able to engage with some of the panelists. Part of our discussion is really about what is the future of art, because there are a lot of people that are in the audience right now that are really helping to push that narrative. And we are from Los Angeles, so as much as I feel a personal responsibility as a public art curator to create a landscape so that digital artists and these experiences, which in terms of creating wellness in our societies, are really really important. I also think that there's a responsibility because we're Los Angelinos and we really need to be innovative and we need to show the world and ourselves, in collaborative conversations, what we have to offer, and continue to be a driver for other people to look and admire. So, it's not by any chance that every one of the panelists is from this area, and you guys are from this area. So I'm going to open it up for people that have questions or comments about your thoughts on the future of public art, so that we can create more of a dialogue scenario in this discussion. If you want to, you can either put up your hand or, better yet, walk up to the microphone that I am now navigating past this space without any feedback.
Well done. Oh yeah, we have some tech guys here who can help us.
And also, if anyone doesn't know what an NFT is, it's okay.
Ask them later. No, that's for the Clubhouse after chat.
Tell us, Greg. Tell us. Tell him, Greg. Tell him.
Okay, so does anybody want to come up and just sort of introduce yourself or talk about I'm just going to call you out if you don't come to the microphone right now. Scott?
I knew it.
Hi, I'm Scott from Heavy IO. We are an augmented reality studio on the verge of dropping an NFT on your platform. I think we've all been in touch. Pleasure to not meet you, but see you. I know your work, but not the person, and you seem so filled with joy and spirit, and I didn't expect that, and that's very cool, so it's nice. What you guys do are incredible. Is this a question? Does this count as my time? Okay. Well, you said something earlier about the sort of combination of the physical, digital, the interactive. For us in augmented reality, that's obviously the world in which we live. Sorry, I catch my breath. Long sprint for my cooling pizza. And I'm just curious your guys' take. We always struggle. I'm just gonna stand up. Here we go. We always struggle with this.
Keep going on the microphone, Scott. Scott, could you go to the mic just so people can hear you? Thank you.
Of the clumsiness of the moment. There are moments where we take out a phone that makes sense. You're at a concert, you see a beautiful mural, this kind of stuff. But there's still a lot of sort of transactional clumsiness of download an app, and then I got to do this, and I got to see that. And I'm curious from the technological perspective, we follow very closely what Apple is doing, what Niantic is doing. But if you guys have all had maybe experiences with tech and trying to sort of smooth the way and make it more accessible, we all want these glasses that are supposed to come, and then every year it's like the next year and the next year and the next year. We know we're getting close, but just kind of thoughts on that about how do you engage more people through that friction of having these kind of augmented experiences?
Good question. Good job.
Good question.
I think one of the awesome, also thank you for the kind words, and one of the fantastic part of I think also the next and or potentially other public art projects, I think AR is a fundamental. VR, yes, maybe individualist, but XR another level, right? So I'm closely working with engineers at NVIDIA right now, like working mostly in computational graphics, and I know that cloud XR, which is computing the information in not on our pocket but somewhere in the cloud, which I feel like hopefully before we're doing anything that can be amazing, but also I think NFTs and projection mapping and or like digital murals and AR will give a context of, for me, at least data. Like when people look at an artwork, like, okay, it's an artistic experience, but can I learn what is behind it, right? Or I know that artists are doing incredible, more complex layerings, and I think AR is incredible, but you are right, how to download several gigabytes of information in a couple of moments that doesn't get overwhelmed so that you can explain something. That's a really common problem at the moment of solve that. Maybe a solution.
I would say it's a solution, but certainly a challenge. And that's a great question because, for us, art is a communal experience. So when you're trying to, again, stick technology in for technology's sake, it tends to be, it can be an issue, right? And we've really seen nothing yet that works. So taking people into a singularity experience and being on a phone and downloading app and finding the Wi-Fi, it just kind of takes you out of that experience. I've seen some people do it relatively well, but it certainly is something we've been looking at for a long time, and I can't say there's a great solution to that now. And I don't know if there ever will be, quite honestly, because like we're all here tonight sharing this experience, it's that energy, it's that communal experience, and when everybody, even though the content and everything may be great in those XR or VR experiences, it kind of takes you out of it for a moment. So a lot of that happens after the fact. I will mention, if you haven't been to yet, you should, go visit the Meow Wolf experience in Las Vegas that just recently opened. I only mention them for a reason, not that we're engaged in any specific way, but I thought they did it relatively well, because if you want to walk into Omega Mart in Las Vegas, and I've probably spent over the last few months 5 hours in the facility for different reasons. There is a superficial level to that, right? So if you want to go in and have your selfie moment, and that's cool, right? And have that experience, it's there for you. But if you also want to take the deep dive and go into that freaking narrative that took them 12 years to write, oh my God, you're going to be there for a while, right? So it's those type of experiences that I think if you can cross that boundary and do it well, share the technology and get that out, but also share the communal experience where I'm going to come up next and tell you about, like I just did. You should all go see that, right? That is kind of the same thing with a different delivery device, maybe? I don't know, but there's no great technology, I think, for at the moment.
Well, this is just to teach Carmen to call on me, because now I'm not going to give the mic up, so we'll see how that works out. So Niantic, with their new release of their Light Ship, I always want to say Light Speed, but Light Ship, a lot of the focus, what you said earlier about the shared experience, we have a lot of hope, and we're an early developer partner with them, so we've done a little bit of stuff, but this notion that you can have a multiplayer, as you'd say, in gaming experience, so that we could be looking at a piece of art and we're standing next to each other, and it's a shared and perhaps interactive asset. So I poke it and it gets red, and then you poke it and it gets green, and we're both seeing that because we're sharing that kind of experience. And we're trying to apply that now into a live event concert type experience, and overlapping that with the NFT world and making it almost like it's the bootleg of the show, like a bunch of us, we all kind of played around with this asset for the minute while the song was going, and then we shared that, and then boom, that gets minted as like the moment from that show, right? And so we're totally agree that what makes compelling art experiences, a lot of gallery owners were really challenged by this during the pandemic, is it's not just about the art, it's about the experience and the dialogue and the aha moments and meeting the artist. And so trying to create community with this stuff feels like really, really important. And AR, which usually is a personal device thing, we have hope that this is one step towards more communal experiences with the art in that way.
Yeah.
I promise I won't come back.
And to your point there, I will tell you, if anyone could get that, it's an amazing get, right? Because I was speaking with my wife on the journey here, is that experience, we're all going to share the same experience. I left point A, I left my home, we both arrived here, but during that travel, we both shared different experiences, right? We're both seeing different things. If you can bring that into the art space and figure that out, and you share that experience or different beats, back and forth, all getting from point A to point B with a different experience, that would be a win, right? And I think we're all striving to get there somehow, some way. And Arup's going to do it, by the way.
Okay, so does anyone else have any? Yeah, I'm actually just going to bring the microphone up this way. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. I had the pleasure to see the event, and I think reaching back till I think it was in May. I think if you'll remember, we were all at home, and this was really the first time that we came out in number at night in downtown LA. And to me, the most satisfying aspect of the event was this ability to be in the real world with the technology. And I think, so we have this conversation about, in real life, this kind of interaction. And then we have the conversation of online or in the web or whatever that is, that, sort of digital experience. And I think what's great about what you all have started to achieve is to sort of linking those two things, that they're not really technology and real life, but also the combination of those things. And that's where I think the magic is. And I don't know if that's a question or anything, but I think that's where the happy place is.
No, I think that's right, and it's part of the reason that I love. My imagination is just stuck on the concept of mixed reality, because I feel like that's both redundant and the goal, right? Yeah.
I want to shout out to Carmen, because it was really it was her vision of exactly the experience that you described. How can we bridge people back into reality and give them like an inspiring world to inhabit, while still being safe and making it comfortable enough, and that was the kernel of the idea from the very beginning, and it was executed and worked beautifully.
Thank you. I mean, I also want to mention too that the medium is really important. So as we're thinking about like the future of art and the development of digital art and also technology, to me, the medium of this form of art, it has the light illumination that, a lot of artists, Terrell, obviously, huge one, talk about in terms of wellness. And then we also have motion, but then we also have the layer of sound. So what was really impactful is looking at how artists are either taking one of those as the driver, or they're using in unison all of those three elements as the driver. Because I don't really, although we have the augmented experiences that also create another level of intimacy and enhancement, there's really like sound is something that, and light is just, those are two elements in terms of art mediums that are completely, they break all of the barriers in terms of an emotional experience. You don't need to be standing in the middle of something that's necessarily immersive, because the immersiveness comes to you. You absorb that immersiveness from the light, from the sound, from the motion. So I think it's a really exciting and impactful moment that we're at right now. The pandemic created a reset. It created a blank canvas. And now there's this rush to technology and understanding it and absorbing it and really seeing where it can go and how it can progress, and in so many different avenues of our development as a human species, our culture and problem solving. So our hope for public art, at least, and art and technology, is just to bring everybody together who's working in these different forms to be able to say, how can we do this better, and how can we really make this sense of wellness transformative to our residents and our public. And the thing that makes public art so powerful is that it's for everyone. It's for, all of the people that are coming up in the alleyways right now. It's for all of the people that are sitting here. It's for the people looking through their windows. It's a democratization that the art world doesn't always have. And I think that bringing NFTs and the sort of cryptocurrency disruptor element, and bringing that, some of those artists into the public realm, is also really engaging and exciting and transformative. So I would love to hear a little bit from Greg about like how MarkersPlace and these artists that are platforming in online experiences, which has a little bit of a, there's a little barrier there because of technology, bringing those artists straight into our streetscapes. There's a couple of people that I would love to sort of like create a dialogue with you, and Rick Robinson is one of them. So I want you to sort of introduce yourself and talk about the future of public art too.
Thanks, Rick.
Hey, Rick. I have a feeling Rick Robinson has some thoughts on the
Hello.
matter.
First of all, what's exciting is that there's this new language appearing now, and we're living it. Artists are learning how to use all the toolkit. The hardware is learning how to work with the artists, software, and the public's being taught that there's something new happening, and it's a new experience, and how they're going to deal with it and share with it and talk about it and all those things. So I think if you couple that with the fact that culturally we now understand that art is not only good for technology in cities and public spaces, but it's good for business. It's no longer seen as light or soft. It's seen as something that makes hard business sense. And as a result of that, there's going to be more demand for content. And it's coming rapidly. And one question I wanted to pose to the panel, and I'm an artist and I worked in the billboard business, and I work in the city of West Hollywood that's developing a bunch of large-scale digital screens. There'll be about 2 million minutes of free space for artists coming up in the next few years. It's transforming cities everywhere. So you'll see more of it. And for those reasons I said, it's good for business, it's good for cities, the merger of technology and art. My question for this group is, given how this manifests, it needs scale. And the content has rigorous specifications. It's just not a canvas and a brush. And how do we get the rest of the art world there? How do we teach artists? You're clearly a unicorn that adopted early and has a unique set of skills. But I would offer that myself and all the other artists here aren't the same unicorn. How do we learn?
So I'll just mention to say, some of the emerging things we're working on, some of the emerging technologies that are coming out. As you mentioned, if you're in the content business, it's probably a good place to be. We cannot get enough content. And that content that we are working with in the new immersive spaces, which we're working on bringing that to the next level of experience in hotel rooms and in your home, right? Not just on the TV screen, but a fully immersive space. Let's imagine that, right? And we're working on theories of that and having those discussions with other partners that you would expect in that space, all of which is highly dependent on the content. Mm-hmm. So how do we produce that content? And with AI, how do we produce that content real time, right? So if I'm in that space and you know me, my content's gonna be different than everybody here, right? And that's a challenge. So the technology is probably moving a little bit faster than the content creation at this point in time, I would say, because content is probably a longer process. And as you mentioned, the mechanics behind that, how you create that, and I'm not an artist by say, but I know it's not a quick process. But just like technology is moving so fast, the delivery of that content exponentially is going to be crazy. So how do we get from A to B? I don't know. But to your point, we already know there's a shortage in content for the next 20 years.
And that shortage, what the concern I have as somebody who's delivering that in public scale, is that there's rigor for that content. There's a requirement that it works at scale. I've been putting art on billboards for 25 years, and now we're putting them up on digital boards, and you just don't take a picture of a painting and put it on a digital board. It falls flat, it disappoints the public, it doesn't satisfy all the expectations from city leaders and the community. And so I do think that's a pressure point that's going to require more than just the organic hope that it figures itself out, right? There needs to be investment from all players, I think, in the group.
Really smart.
Yeah, for sure. Especially with the power of digital scarcity being what it is, like for the first time, I think artists are empowered with something that is changing their appreciation for what you just said. And you know, someone like Refik to be able to display an artwork that's owned by someone who he's never met per se in a city to bolster the local economy and stuff of that nature, I think is just incredibly interesting for everyone involved.
And I'll sit, because I'll
I
just
think
keep
for
going.
the content, but content creation question is really very, very important because, I mean, just let's remember the event, for example. We used 2 4K projectors. And if you like, from a technical point of view, one movie theater is using one of them, right? And artwork using 2 of them on a building means double the resolution of a normal movie that is Hollywood level. So how an artist can handle such a huge resolution and 200 million particles, getting data from NASA GPL archives that go, like, I mean, that ecosystem is still, I think, will take many years of probably engaging with that technology, but I think the game engines or the NFT scene, democratizing tons of tools that I think becoming a drag and drop. Like, I don't think anyone will need to know how to code or, you know, nerd in the computers forever. I think it will be hopefully more about like drag and drop level, like what you see and what you get level UIs. My hope, at least at Studio, we are doing our best to ignore the tool and get to the idea. But I think your question is really very inspiring because somebody also has to take the responsibility of sharing the knowledge of the canvas. Like myself, and I think anyone who is creating opportunities will be aware of the challenges for whoever want to use the same, I think, canvas. It should be also on the creator side, definitely.
So good.
Carmen.
Yeah.
Come on up. Get up.
Okay, I think this is going to be the last question, and then we're going to break.
Hi, I'm Kat. I'm Paul's daughter.
Bravo!
I've been hearing all these things that have been said about democratizing this technology and thinking about how to increase access. And I just, as someone who kind of comes from an education sphere, one of the things that it makes me think about in terms of Los Angeles is disparities in education, particularly like the fact that I have worked with youth who, if you put this technology in their hands, they would make the most amazing things. So I guess my question is just visions that the panelists might have for how we can get artists involved and access to this technology younger, so that some of these things can be made early and people can start really thinking about how does this technology move forward from the age of like 14 and how that might move. Yeah. Thanks.
Great question.
I mean, you know, I feel like, yeah, I think that this is kind of what I meant when I said we could have a 4-day symposium. And I definitely want to hear mostly from the people who are actually enacting that. But I absolutely feel that, you know, digital and media literacy and access to the tools of the technology as a function of public education is a really brilliant way of thinking about it, because we talk about technology being this democratized path of access, but the asterisk on that is depending on how nice a phone you can afford, or if you have Wi-Fi at your house. And that is absolutely so crucial to, I think, the next level of realizing the utopian promise. I really appreciate your question and your comment, because I think, and that, you know, that idea of access cuts in every conceivable direction. It could be economic, it could be regional infrastructure, like maybe there's, you know, whatever, remote town. We're still having a national conversation about, you know, broadband access in our country, right? And this is definitely coming right along with that. And whether that maybe is like encouraging more women to study math and tech is one component of that. And I think it's so important, and thank you for that reminder that we keep those things top of mind. And I hope I'm about to hear that you guys are already doing that.
Yes, we are. Yes, and that was a great softball question. Thank you for that. What's important to us is, of course, accessibility to the technology, and not only does it make sense, but it makes business sense as well. There's a great example here in the audience. Nate, who was a student of Refik, is here in the audience, and I just called you out, so he's got his hand over his face. We reach out, we have good connections with schools. So Nate was going to UCLA at the time, and I met with the Department of Arts, and they said, well, our students are doing exhibitions here for their senior type project. So I offered our equipment to the school, and Nate had an amazing project, and now, the business sense is he's a customer for life. He loves Panasonic, so he's on the team, right? So exactly. But I think accessibility and understanding, and Refik spoke about it from his perspective, is being able to share that information that he learned so that we can all kind of grow together, and that's how we get into this this hyper growth type of atmosphere that we're in now.
To accent on that, that is a challenge. Getting technology into universal, everyone's hands, as you said. That's a political quagmire, but once we can get that technology into everybody's hands, and I think this year actually was probably pretty good for that, right? So if there's anything that positive came out of this year in the pandemic, was accessibility and the need to get that technology into everybody's hands, especially the younger students. And I think there's a lot of ground broken for that. So if there's anything that we can think about, that's probably a good thing. Some of the things we're working on, I will tell you just a little drop into how cool it could be on that. And education is a huge passion of ours. Panasonic has an education foundation that we try to plug in everywhere we can. It's not the largest, but we try to really emphasize on that. Working with the technology and AI, for instance, this year has taught us a lot. So remote learning, right? So whereas I learned at certainly a much different pace than students in my day, and everybody learns at a different level, right, in class. So there's one teacher pontificating in front of a body of students in K through 12 or higher ed, whatever it may be. And people absorb that at a different level. So with technology, flip that script, right? So now there's 100 professors, same person, that is teaching at every answer or any scenario that may be set for a student's learning capabilities and speed of learning, right? So now my questions are answered digitally from that professor to me, right? So now we just flip that. So think of the possibilities there and how that may change everybody's life, and that can cross boundaries of sex, race, demographics, everything. But we do need to bridge the gap from technology and work through that first. But once we get there, again, like content and art, it is there, it's capable, it can happen relatively soon, but we just need to get the technology in people's hands.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up so that everybody has a chance to mingle. Thank you guys, everybody, for coming. Thank you to the online audience for attending. We had a large live stream audience watching this showcase. So I would like for, special thanks to High Def, and then especially all the panelists. And thank you so much, Shana. You did a fantastic job at moderating.
Thank you.
Very fantastic.
Thank you so much for having me. I learned a lot too.
Ellen and Wallace from South Park Bid. Love you guys. All right, so thank you so much. Let's get drinks and chat amongst ourselves.